A lot of people in my comments have been asking me to watch this video. It's called The Story of Wojtek, the Polish military bear. So I read one of the comments that someone wrote on one of my videos, and they said that actually this military bear has a connection to Scotland. I've never heard of Wojtek or the story of Wojtek, so really interested to hear this connection and just learn about the Polish military bear. Tell me if you know about this story. Tell me what you think about it. Let's watch.
In 1942, a band of Polish soldiers recently released from prisons and work camps stumbled upon an unlikely mascot, a brown bear cub. Enamored with his antics and friendly personality, the troops took on the cub as one of their own. The bear grew and the war progressed. As the men ventured into combat, Wojtek the military bear served right by their sides, distinguishing himself enough to become an official part of the Polish military forces. Today on Weird History, we're going to find out about Wojtek, the bear who went to war.
Wow, so this bear actually was alongside these military professionals? This sounds like
But before we get started, take a minute to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know which crazy historic animals you would like to hear about. Now let's crawl out of hibernation and head back to World War II. On September 1st of 1939, Poland was invaded by German military forces from the north and from the west. On September 17th, Poland was invaded by Soviet forces from the east. As a result of the invasions, more than 400,000 Polish prisoners were sent to work camps in Siberia. This double whammy on Poland was made possible by the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, a pact which fell apart when Hitler directed German forces to invade the Soviet Union in 1941. Not one to take a double cross very well, Stalin ordered Soviet troops to release those same Polish soldiers taken prisoner a few years earlier to join the fight against Germany. As these Polish troops made their way out of Siberia and into Iran, they met a young shepherd. The shepherd carried with him a sack, and in that sack he kept a Syrian brown bear cub. Makes carting around your Shih Tzu in a purse seem kind of lame, doesn't it? The bear was an orphan.
Yeah.
His mother had been killed by hunters. The playful spirit of the cub won the troops over, and they made a trade with the shepherd. The newly adopted bear left his old life to go on an adventure with Polish troopers in World War II.
Is that a real image of the bear? That is, I thought when he talked about a small bear, it was a small bear. That's actually a big bear.
The fighting men gave their new friend the name Wojtek, which means joyful soldier. A brown bear in the ranks of soldiers tends to stick out. A Syrian brown bear is a rather small bear, at least as far as bears go. As an adult, they can measure up to 4.5 feet long from nose to tail and weigh up to 550 pounds. Their fur is light brown, closer to the color of straw. The hair between their shoulder blades is often a different shade from the rest of their body, sometimes appearing as a dark stripe. And it is the only bear species known to have white claws. Very stylish, but boy do they show dirt. The bulk of the responsibilities to care for the brown bear cub fell on two men, essentially his adoptive parents, Dmitra Shaluga and Henryk Zakarowicz. Henryk, in particular, formed a close bond with the bear. In most of the films and pictures that exist of Wojtek, Henryk can always be seen nearby. Apparently, Wojtek had a helicopter parent. In the wild, a Syrian brown bear eats fruits, berries, seeds, plants, grasses, nuts, grubs, and small mammals. If particularly peckish, he will eat cultivated grains and livestock. The military was ill-equipped to care for a bear cub, so the troops made do with what they had. Wojtek was initially fed condensed milk from a bottle. But as he grew, his tastes expanded to include, well, basically anything that was available. Not a real foodie. The larger Wojtek got, the more bold he became to roam around the camp's kitchen, scrounging up a snack.
This is absolutely insane. What a great story. I never knew. This is like, as much as I've learned about history in this time World War II, this is the sort of story that you tell children that gets them interested in things like World War history. Such a random story, but I mean, it shows the compassion and the care of the Polish soldiers, how they cared for this bear for such a long time and help it grow.
In the rare moments when his military family wasn't doing military things like packing, moving, working, or fighting, Wojtek was always up for mixing it up with his human friends. Whether Wojtek was entertaining the troops or the troops were entertaining Wojtek is hard to say. In any event, he threw back beers like one of the boys. But big talk over beers was not Wojtek's style. He was a bear of action. The larger he grew, the more he enjoyed wrestling.
Wait, did he really drink beer? Were they feeding this bear beer? That is, I mean, as long as they don't die and they enjoy it, I guess that's pretty fun, man.
The brown bear loved to roughhouse with men, though it was a rare soldier who was brave enough to earnestly tussle with Wojtek. No troops ever got seriously injured, but it was common for a wrestling match to end with someone's body getting scratched or someone's clothes getting shredded. And that someone was never Wojtek.
I can
Perhaps
imagine.
that's why most of the men prefer to watch from the sidelines. As a side note, a friend who urges you to wrestle with a bear may not be your friend.
He's just one of the lads.
Wojtek's
having a
behavior
great
was
time.
influenced by his peer group, who happened to be war-hardened men with advanced skills in carousing. It's a tough environment for an impressionable young bear. Wojtek adopted their habits and fit right in. He had his own mug that he used to drink beer and wine from, and when it was empty, Wojtek would look mournfully at the cup until it was refilled. He also begged for cigarettes, though he insisted someone lit them before he would accept.
Is this true? A smoking, drinking bear in the middle of a war, roughhousing with soldiers? This is the best. Why is there not like a movie about this bear? We seen a couple of months ago they released a movie called Cocaine Bear. That's not very heroic. This is a heroic, fun bear, man.
Typically, after one puff, Wojtek would swallow it whole. Come to where the flavor is.
Amazing.
When the troops arrived in Palestine, they were organized into the 22nd Transport Company, Artillery Division, Polish 2nd Corps. The men, however, would not abandon Wojtek, who was immediately adopted as the company mascot. But it wasn't just a symbolic gesture. Wojtek was part of the team. One evening, while the camp was asleep, a thief crept into the compound looking for something to steal. Unfortunately for him, he awoke Wojtek, who rose to investigate. With a massive brown bear lumbering towards him, the frightened thief, understandably, forgot he was a thief. He made such a clatter that he woke the troops, and he was quickly apprehended. As a reward for his vigilance, Wojtek was given a bottle of beer. Hey, barkeep, how about a bottle of suds for my furry friend over there?
This guy's living the dream. This bear is living the good life.
When he was young, Wojtek traveled with the company from site to site in whatever cab of whatever truck had room. But as Wojtek grew, he tipped the scale at 500 pounds, and it was harder to find any vehicle that had room for him to ride shotgun.
Yeah.
So he was upgraded to one of the company's recovery trucks. A recovery truck is like a tow truck, but military-sized and used to move tanks. For Wojtek, it was a traveling home, like an RV built for a bear. He
Wow.
spent his trips lounging on the recovery truck's bed and alleviating his boredom by climbing the crane to get a view of the surroundings.
This is unbelievable, man. It's
Wojtek
brilliant.
wasn't the only animal who accompanied soldiers in the Second World War, although he likely was the only bear on the battlefield. Some animals, like anti-tank dogs, served grim but useful purposes, while others were brought to battle as a mascot. Whenever he encountered other animals, Wojtek was always friendly. The soldiers of the 22nd Transport Company loved to talk about the encounters between Wojtek and Kasia the monkey and Kirkuk the dog, two of the war's most famous animal combatants.
Really? I've never
considered
heard
them
of them.
the A-list celebrity animals of the day. Wojtek never suffered a bullet or shrapnel wound, but he did encounter a life-threatening injury. Wojtek was once stung on the nose by a scorpion. Such an injury is often lethal. In fact, his friend Kirkuk the dog succumbed to a scorpion sting. Wojtek's friend Henrik was beside himself. He refused to leave the bear's side, doing all in his power to help nurse Wojtek back to health. For the first day and a half, the situation was critical, and it looked as if Wojtek might not make it. The soldiers feared the worst. But Wojtek fought back, and against all odds, overcame the scorpion's venom. Within days, he was back to his carousing ways.
Wow. I know, like, it's like a funny story to hear this drinking, smoking bear, but when you have a thing like this, like a symbol, it's for the soldiers. He actually must mean a lot when they're like away from their families and they're in these terrible situations in the middle of war, being attacked and their lives being at risk. Having this thing here to entertain them and to show love to, It must actually mean the bear must have meant so much to them, really, actually.
As the 22nd Transport Company received their assignment and was sent to the Italian battlefront in 1943, Wojtek had to be left behind in Palestine due to regulations that prohibited animals in combat. An active war front is typically not an ideal place for a bear, but Wojtek was not a typical bear. To get around the regulation, Wojtek was officially enlisted in the Polish army. He was even given his own paycheck, rank, and serial number. This helped ensure his participation was recorded, and the world knew under which flag Wojtek served.
Wow.
Though there was confusion and likely a bit of aggravation about transporting a bear to the Italian battlefront, the Polish troops eventually got their way.
This is actually a very heartwarming
In Italy, there were a
story.
series of fortifications known as the Winter Line. In 1944, the Germans held the western portion of that line, and the Allies determined that breaking through that line near a rocky hill known as Monte Cassino would give them access to the Italian capital of Rome. Atop the hill was an abbey that had been converted into a fearsome stronghold. The abbey ultimately withstood 3 assaults before the Allies drove its inhabitants backwards into Rome. During one of these assaults, Wojtek's pal Henrik, serving as an artillery spotter, pulled forward into battle and had to leave his bear friend behind. Left among the men who armed and manned the guns, Wojtek refused to sit idly by. Mimicking the behavior of the soldiers around him, Wojtek began to lift massive crates of ammunition and carry them towards the cannons, disregarding the gunfire and making himself useful throughout the assault.
Jeez.
By the time Monte Cassino was in the hands of the Allies, more than 70,000 men on both sides had lost their lives. When the chaos of battle settled, the troops were able to rest, and word of Wojtek's exploits spread. His fearless actions and loyalty in battle made him a hero among the 22nd Transport Company. In honor of Wojtek's deeds, the official seal of the 22nd Transport Company was changed to feature Wojtek marching towards cannon fire, a shell in each hand.
Wow.
The logo was then featured prominently on vehicles, uniforms, and the like.
That is absolutely... It's blowing my mind. I mean, to see how he's actually respected with things like that, that's a huge honour for a bear. And I feel like it's a great... it shows up the Polish army of being very great. They've actually taken care of this bear, used it as a mascot, but also paid respect to his role in the military and in this war as well. Post-war life.
After the war, the 22nd Transport Company moved to rural Scotland, where they were stationed at an airfield near the village of Hutton. The soldiers Wojtek had spent the previous 3 years following into battle were restationed or sent home. One by one, they came to say goodbye to their furry friend. Wojtek's battle adventures were ending, but his time in the spotlight was just beginning. Word spread that there was a Syrian brown bear nearby, and Wojtek became a local celebrity among the Scottish people. He was profiled in stories, visited by locals, and inducted into local organizations such as the Polish-Scottish Association.
Why did I not know about this? So obviously people told me before making a reaction to this video that this bear has some sort of connection to Scotland. I had no idea this bear actually, I mean, I had no idea about this bear even existing, but to know that he actually spent time in Scotland, I'm proud of that, man, that after military he spent time in my home country. I only wish that I had learned about him. I feel like, as I said, this is the sort of story you tell young people, especially being from Scotland, to know that this interesting story about World War II had some connection to Scotland, and it's a bear that fought in the war. It's such an amazing thing, such an interesting thing. And yeah, I don't know why we wouldn't have been taught about him, to be honest, but I'm, as I said, I'm proud of that. Post-military years.
In 1947, Wojtek left the military. Rising from his initial rank as private, he was discharged as a corporal. He retired to the Edinburgh Zoo. There he enjoyed a good life as beloved celebrity, doing an occasional interview and appearing on a local children's show from time to time. As the years wore on, Wojtek was never forgotten by his army pals.
I mean, just look at that image. If that is a real image, that is absolutely fantastic. He's really just one of the guys. But he was at Edinburgh Zoo as well, man. That's a place I've been to so many times when I'm younger. I don't remember reading about him or seeing like anything in Edinburgh Zoo. Maybe there was, but I was very young when the last time I was there. So when I go back to Scotland, I'll need to check that out, and I'm just going to need to learn more about him, and yeah, maybe see if there's anything in Edinburgh Zoo that pays tribute to him.
And was visited by Polish soldiers he had served with. His 82-year-old Polish veteran, Augustin Karolewski, described his reunion with Wojtek. As soon as I mentioned his name, he would sit on his backside and shake his head, wanting a cigarette. Still one of the boys.
One of the boys,
in the
that's
wild,
it.
Syrian brown bears live between 20 and 25 years. Wojtek, for all his adventures, lived to a ripe age of 21 and passed away in 1963. So what do you think?
Is that in Scotland? Is that Edinburgh Castle? I don't know actually, man. I can't really tell. I don't know if this is Edinburgh Castle. Like I kind of recognise, I know at the bottom of Edinburgh Castle there's a big park here, Princess Street Gardens, I think. I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe I'm just imagining. I think that's the story. That is a fantastic story. Tell me, if you're from Poland, where did you learn about this? Did you learn about him at school when you're younger? Is it something you only learned about when you became an adult and seen like videos like this? Such a interesting, unique story, and to have that Scottish connection, as I say, I'm very proud. I really, that's a connection between Poland and Scotland. I'm happy to know. I'm going to be telling as much people as I can about this story. Tell me what you think about it. Thanks.